Welcome to the Expansive CEO podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Chapman, founder of Expansive CEO and X Squared Wealth Planning. Buckle in as we explore how to create true prosperity and build a business and a life that expands beyond yourself and makes a dent in the universe. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Expansive CEO podcast. I have got an awesome guest for you today. We're going to talk about podcasting and AI and all matters of marketing and how to really get your voice out there in some different ways. And so I'm today with Mark Savant, who's the founder of Mark Savant Media, which is a marketing and podcast production agency that really leverages the power of AI, especially to get the best results at the best price. So Mark, thank you so much for coming onto the show. I'm so happy to have you here. And I would love to hear in your words what it is you do, and why you do it. Why does it matter to you? So thank you.
Hannah, thank you. As someone who's recorded over 600 podcast episodes myself personally, I really appreciate the opportunity to be on someone's show. It really is an honor. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I find the same thing, right? I love to go on other people's podcasts too. I love when people interview me, right? It's fun. So now it's your turn to be in the spotlight. Tell us about you.
Well, I appreciate it. I've been a lifelong employee, and about 5 years ago, I was like, my job sucks. I'm not having fun. I see where the industry is going. I was running an insurance office, and more quotes were coming in online. More and more customer service was happening online. And quite frankly, I was tired of being yelled at because a claim was denied or the rate went up. I was like, this is not for me. And so I started trying all sorts of different businesses. And I really fell in love at a certain point when I launched my own podcast. It was about fatherhood called The Awesome Dad Show. You can still listen to it. It's still out there. But I really fell in love with podcasting, and eventually people started paying me to help them with their podcast. And so I built out a small team, was helping clients with podcasts. And then in late 2022, I lost a key team member. Key team member was lost. I was like, oh, crap. And I did what most business owners did, and I started picking up the slack and doing the work while I waited for the right person to come along. I became overwhelmed immediately, and my wife was frustrated. I was frustrated. My kids were frustrated. Everyone was frustrated. There was a lot of frustration happening in the Savant household. So what happened there, Hannah, is I started using AI in my business and in my workflows, and I saved so much time and so much money. In some cases, I saved up to 90% of my time. And I was like, this is crazy. This is crazy. So I started using it, training my team. And then 3 months later, I quit my day job, went all in on the side hustle, and it's been just awesome ever since. So happy to be here to kind of talk about how marketing and AI and podcasting all play a role in this new world that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, that is, well, first of all, being in the financial industry, I agree. I would never want to be on the insurance side. No, thank you. It's a tough business. I really enjoy my spot of I get to talk to clients and help them plan for things that are a little more fun than insurance, I think. So good to get out of that and into a new spot. And what I'm really interested to hear about is, this journey of podcasting. And for me, we talked a little bit when we first got on before we hit record that, for me, I started podcasting in 2022 because in 2021, I did a ton of writing. And I like to write. I actually, I would love to write my own book, right? That's in the ether, in the works, right? I would love that. And I do a lot of writing, but I was writing and blogging and writing articles and, long form writing on social media, doing a lot of that. And I was feeling called at kind of the beginning of 2022. I really wanted to just talk more. I wanted to speak. There was, something about really actually using my voice that was really calling to me. And I know there are a lot of people that feel that way as well, right? There's this kind of this human need, right, to communicate and to be able to talk and to tell our stories. And podcasting has given me a way to continue to get to know people and to deepen relationships. And, all of the interview episodes that I get to do, I like really get to know people. And most of the time it's like, okay, when are we doing another episode? Because that was fun. Um, just to spend that time together connecting. And so from a podcast standpoint and from people like anyone who's listening who's like, I've wanted to do this for a long time. I'm just not quite sure how to get started. Tell us more about your journey there, about creating your first podcast and then helping others. And what does it do? What does it do for a brand to have a podcast?
Well, it's everything. It's helps you to build know, like, and trust, which is, in my opinion, the most valuable asset that we can have as individuals and as companies. We're moving into this phase of humanity where it's going to be really difficult to know who's legit, who's real. You can't believe your lying eyes with deep fakes and AI generated images and video. It's going to get crazy. So having your own personal brand, I think, is incredibly powerful. It's going to build credibility. It's just like, if I'm going to go to a restaurant and I see one restaurant has 100 5-star reviews and another has 2 5-star reviews, where are you going to go? You're going to go to the place that has all the 5-star reviews. And just to kind of be clear, I look at podcasting a little bit differently than some traditional podcasters look at it. Um, to me, podcasting is more than just an audio file on iTunes. It's all the content that is able to be created based on the audio and video medium. Right now, we're here on Zoom. We're getting a high quality video, we're getting high quality audio, and then we can repurpose that into an email, into a blog. This is on iTunes. It's going to be on Spotify. We can put it on YouTube. We can turn it into LinkedIn content. We can turn it into Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Heck, we'll probably be turning this into VR pretty soon. So it's in my opinion the best bang for your buck. It's the most efficient way of creating content in a digital world where everybody's making decisions and everybody is living. Because I can hop on a 30-minute Zoom call with someone interesting to build rapport, to build a relationship. Maybe they're my ideal client. Maybe they're a gatekeeper. Maybe they're a potential referral partner. Maybe it's someone I just want to ask questions to. Right? I had Neil Patel. He's the biggest SEO marketer in the world. I had Neil Patel on my show, and I just asked him questions about how to do SEO better. I had Pat Flynn on my show. I asked him questions about how he's using AI. So it gives you access. But to tie a bow on this idea here is that this idea of getting on 30-minute Zoom calls and creating all this content is the most cost-effective and time-efficient way to create content and to reach new people and to turn cold leads into warm.
Mm. Yes, I've started experiencing this. And I would say, so this is another piece that I want to kind of like talk about a little bit are expectations around what's actually going to happen, right? When you start podcasting. Um, because I would say like for probably at least the first year, had noticed I put everything on YouTube at first. And then starting in 2023 is when I actually put everything out onto podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, Google, all the stuff. Um, and I could watch and see the downloads and see, okay, people are listening around different parts of the world. And, this is what it's doing on YouTube. This is what it's doing on, the other platforms. But it took probably a good year before I started getting people who were like, "Oh, I've listened to that one 3 times because it was so good." Or, like that kind of thing. That's when the momentum started moving. And by then I probably had around 25 episodes ish in. Right? Like, it took time for that momentum to start building, and now we're closing in on 100, and we'll be at 100 pretty soon, which is super exciting, right? Yes. Um, but yeah, it takes time, and it takes momentum, and it takes, consistency in doing all these things. What do you notice and experience with people on the experience of getting started?
Well, it's just like anything. I remember I was signing a client a couple of years ago into my agency. We do all this repurposing. We have all the marketing kind of tools. And we do the marketing strategy to make sure the show actually achieves your objective. And this client at the time said, "Well, what's your goal with this podcast?" They're like, "Well, by the end of year one, I want 1 million downloads and we want to generate $100,000 in ad revenue." I'm like, "Okay, so let's tether expectations a little bit here. Like,
Shoot for the stars.
I'm all about dreaming. Like, let's dream. Let's have a big dream. Let's have a vision. Like, I love that. But I think where people sometimes get confused with podcast in this media production is they think that, I want to generate income from ads. And the majority of people that make money from like the amount of people that make a decent amount of income from running ads is very, very low. It's very, very low. A normal CPM is about $20 to $25 for every 1,000 downloads
Oh,
is
wow.
about what you expect. So you need to have a lot of downloads to generate a reasonable CPM. But where I see like the long form, so I see the podcast as having two major values from day one. And so part of that is the short form content that is posted all over the web. Very easy to repurpose it and get it all over the web, because that creates attention. That turns someone who's never heard of you, a cold lead, into a warm lead. Okay.
Mhm.
Now someone has heard of you, so you're warm. They'll go to check your profile on LinkedIn, and there's different ways we can retarget them and things like that. Um, but the other advantage is sometimes people just aren't ready to buy. Right. For example, if you're looking for financial services and we have a chat, well, maybe I'm not ready for the financial services and planning today. Maybe it's in a year. So by you continuously showing up in my feed day after day after day after day, you're who am I going to think about when it's time for me to purchase that high ticket product, that high ticket service? And by the way, Hannah, this happens all the time. Almost all the clients I have, I get this all the time. Mark, I've been following you for a year and a half. Now I'm ready.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, let's go. And then the second part of that is you've got the short form, then you have the long form, which again is really designed to build a know, like, and trust. If you're selling a product or service that is, we'll call it relatively expensive, people want to know who they're working with. And we want to do business with people that we like. We want to do business with people that we trust. And if I can listen to you talk for a half hour and get an idea of your ideas, your values, it goes a long way in developing that trust. If someone says, you know what, this is the type of person I want to work with. And I've seen that happen time and time again.
I have had that literal experience. And I've been showing up on, especially on social media, especially in the financial advising space. People can't always show up uniquely. Most people who work at a big broker dealer, they're in a very tight compliance box.
Mm,
And so that's one of the reasons why I left and went independent, was so that I could have more creative freedom about how I express myself and the different ways that I do that. So I've been showing up on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all the places, YouTube, for several years now. And I do believe that the long form content on the podcast has actually really like taken a lot of that and then condensed it, right? That sense of people being able to hear. It's like when they hear your voice, it's like you're getting to know someone more intimately than just reading, reading their content or reading a blog or any of that. It really does the know factor, I think, really starts to um blossom in that space.
Absolutely. Without fail, Hannah, every time this happens, every time I go to a conference or an event, someone will walk up to me that I've never met before and they'll say, "Are you Mark? Are you Mark Savant?" I said, "Yeah, it's nice to meet you." Like, I listen to your podcast all the time. This is so great. This is so cool to actually meet you in person. It happens every time without fail. Um, again, just a testament to the value that I've personally seen. But I think again, before you start a project like this, it is going to take time. It is going to take resources. So making sure that you have a right plan in place is important. Understanding like, well, why am I starting this in the first place? I think is a key to making sure that it's a success.
Mm. And so let's shift over a little bit to the AI portion of how you've been really leveraging that, in order to make this process much easier. Because I can attest to that as well, like finding AI software that splits things up, right? So take a beautiful video like this and then let's split it into clips. Like I don't have to do that. I don't have to spend, hours editing and like finding just the right thing, right? Like there's AI that does that for you now. In a bunch of different ways. So tell us from your perspective, yeah, like what are some of the things that you're using that are really, really helping make the process easier? And then, like you said, like that, we call that omni-channel marketing, right? Like putting it everywhere, taking the one thing and then splitting it up and putting it all over the place. How do we do that without it being overwhelming?
Well, and again, the AI is what makes the difference. It makes what previously was impossible possible. And by the way, if y'all want to send me an email, mark@marksavantmedia.com, code word Hannah, code word
Get a code
Hannah,
word.
code
Yes.
word, get the code word. If you email me, mark@marksavantmedia.com, code word Hannah, I have an entire guide. It's 20 pages, all my standard operating procedures, all the AI programs I'm using. I even have discounts on a lot of the AI softwares that I might mention here. Um, but they're just so powerful. So one of my favorite tools is a tool called Cast Magic, which you may have heard of. And what Cast Magic does is it turns video and audio into text. And it can do this in a lot of different ways. So it's fantastic for coming up with titles, writing descriptions, doing show notes, blogs, emails. It's a very powerful tool. There is some automation that you can implement as well with programs like Zapier, which is powerful. So Cast Magic, one of my favorite tools. I have a discount code. If you all email me, I'll hook you up with a code so you can try it on the cheap. When it comes to creating clips, programs like Riverside, which is one of my favorite programs for recording, remote recording, it can actually create clips within the program. So it's very easy to make clips. You can also use tools like Opus Clips to make clips. So those are some of my favorite tools. Just a few of the tools. Descript is a very powerful tool for editing audio and video. So there's a lot of cool tools there. The other thing I think that we need to kind of consider, Hannah, and this is something I'm very thoughtful about, is we're entering this day and age where it's so easy to create clips and create content for social media that I do think that we need to combine some human element with AI. So I really like to think of empowering my team
Mhm.
with AI so that they can work quickly and efficiently. Because again, as business owners, we got a business to run. We've got everything to think about, from sales to customer service to finances, to taxes, insurance, legal. There's a million things. And so giving our team the right tools to execute, or hiring an agency to execute, is important. Um, because I do think in order to stand out, there needs to be a little bit extra something rather than just taking the clip and posting it. There needs to be a little bit extra put on top of it so that it stands out in a noisy atmosphere.
Oh, that's such a good point because I like I notice that too, right? As soon as I see something that's like purely AI generated with no human touch at all, it is pretty much like a not interesting, right?
Yeah.
And so having I love hearing you say that because it's like validation too. For my process that, I have an amazing executive assistant that does all of the podcast production for me. And that is how we use it. We use, okay, generate a clip, go through, find the ones that work, and then write a description, right? It's not just like copy paste of the transcript that's being said. It's what are we talking about here? Why are we posting this? Like what's
Mm.
the again, what's the person reading? Why do you want to be on this clip? What are you going to get out of this? So that it's not just completely, you know, out of thin air. And I think the human element, the human touch is the thing. AI is wonderful. It does amazing things, and it still needs those guardrails in order for, it not to, or here's the way I'm going to put it. It's like the uncanny valley. Um, phenomenon, right? Like when things are purely AI, we're like, mm-mm, no, no, that doesn't seem right.
Mm.
But when we can again infuse that human touch, like, okay, I used AI to generate this thing, and here's why, or here's how, or here's what it means. I think that's going to be really, really important going forward into, like you said at the beginning, like deep fakes, all of that. We need to know that there's a human behind it.
Using AI, and whether it's for this or for your marketing, your copywriting, or for analysis, consulting, coach, learning how to use AI is going to be the most important skill over the next several years. It's not close. In because it's an empowering tool. Whereas you might have used to have, a few years ago, you would need a team of 4 or 5 people to execute what one person can do in half the time now.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of conflicted on this, Hannah, because on one hand, I don't necessarily. People say, well, AI won't replace humans. Humans using AI will replace humans. But I look at them like it's the same damn thing. It still means that that job that was there before doesn't exist because what used to take 10 people now takes one person.
Mhm.
So the people that are the people, the businesses, the executives, the people that are using the AI are going to flourish. The people that are late, I'm sorry, but there's going to be a lot. This is to me one of the biggest problems. It is not the politicians talk about a lot of stuff, but they're not talking about the massive job displacement that's coming right now. I'll give you an example. Walmart is planning to automate 63% of their stores within the next 3 years. And Walmart is the biggest employer in the United States.
Wow.
Retail is the number one employer in the United States. There's more people working in retail than any other industry, more jobs. Walmart is going to set the standard at 63% automated. What do you think all the other companies are going to do? So it's learning how to leverage these tools. It's going to be incredibly important to be a relevant piece of the market. It's going to be everything.
Yeah, and it's super interesting that you're bringing that into the conversation because, on Fridays, I do Investment Friday episodes with my chief investment officer at Juncture Wealth Strategies, and we talk about this. When I want to say maybe even a month, maybe 2 months ago, um, talking about how AI in particular, right, it is going to lead to the next jump in productivity. And productivity doesn't necessarily mean that the people are being more productive. It just means that more work is able to get done, which is what is also like enabling the market, right? So the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, are big companies, and even filtering down then to our medium sized and small companies. That's
Mhm.
exactly what you're saying. Like those who are leveraging AI are going to have such a massive boost in their bottom line productivity that the market will continue to expand and grow. But you're right, like where do those displaced workers go? So it's going to be more of a like where like understanding where the skill sets need to be, right? Especially for our like my kids are Gen Alpha. I have 13, 11, and almost 9 are my kids' ages. Even Gen Zers who are the next age up, the kids graduating from college, right? And now young adults. What skills do you need to have in order to actually be relevant in the marketplace for a long period of time?
Well, and the answer is we don't know. The world is changing so fast. The world in 10 years is going to be unrecognizable. Everything is going to be so different. It's hard to make predictions. So I really feel that the key is leveraging and testing and just learning this stuff now. I'll give you another specific example. My agency is growing, my marketing and podcast production agency is growing, and so I'm going out to hire new people. Okay, and we can talk about some of the ways I'm using AI in this process too, if
Mm.
you like, which is kind of cool. But if I was interviewing someone the other day who's referred to me by someone, I was talking, I said, well, how are you using AI in editing right now? He's like, I'm not, I don't really like AI, it's taken away from creators. And I said, all right, cool, well, basically that's the end of the interview, because not that I don't like you, not because you don't do good work, but I'm going to have to pay you 10 times as much as I would someone who's using AI, because what's going to take you 2 to 3 hours to do, I can hire someone that can do it in 10 minutes.
Mhm.
There's no possible way I could hire you, because you're not going to be competitive in the marketplace. So testing and trying these tools now is what I try to preach is, here's an idea, here's a tool. If you're not learning this stuff now, you're going to be displaced for this exact reason. You're not going to be able to keep up with the people that are.
Mm. And on the probably on the same track, but on like maybe another aspect of it, one of the things that doesn't get replaced is human connection, right? And so like these
Right.
places, right, when you're building a podcast agency, you are still supporting humans who want to talk into a microphone for a while, right? And use that as part of their business and to impart their wisdom and to share, whatever it is that they've learned, or just to connect and enjoy spending time with other people and have business goals from that, right? But that human connection is still what AI is then supporting. It's not replacing in that way.
Well, we'll
Maybe.
see. We'll see. Predict bold prediction. Within 5 years, people will be applying to get married to AI bots. I'm very solidly believe that'll be the case. Um, but I think sometimes we confuse human connection. Like social media has completely changed the way that humans connect.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Hannah, but the vast majority of people that I've connected with on social media is very that's it. It's the beginning and the end. Not all. For
Mhm.
some people I have developed real relationships, but for 98%, it doesn't. It's like a digital face that it's a digital avatar, a digital face I see online. It's when I see them in person that
Mhm.
really solidifies that relationship, or when I get onto a podcast with them, that solidifies the relationship. That's where you can create a bigger bond rather than just in the DMs. um, but by leveraging, I think, AI, it's going to allow us to eliminate the I hate to kind of say it this way. I just the way I feel. It's going to help me eliminate all the kind of like relationships that are just not even surface level. It's just like LinkedIn, for example. Every DM I get is someone trying to sell me something, right? Like,
Yep.
why do I need to spend a lot of time engaging with people on LinkedIn if it's just people trying to sell things? This actually manifested in a funny way the other day. Actually, this morning, I'm using, and we could maybe talk about this, which is pretty cool. Me and my team are using an AI LinkedIn engagement strategy to engage with tons of accounts, drive traffic to our profile, and uh, leverage the people that land on the profile, get them in the DMs, and try to close them on services, right? And someone had reached out to me because he knows, and we've been talking about the strategy that we're using. And someone left an AI response to the AI response that we had left on a post, which was probably created by AI, quite frankly. So we're entering into this weird space where all the AI is going to take all the surface level stuff away so we can actually focus on the stuff that really matters, like my
Mhm.
kids, like my
Yeah.
wife, like Hannah, who I'm chatting with here on a call. So it's just going to really change the dynamic of humanity in a lot of different ways, some for good, some for bad. But again, without exploring it, without putting on your explorer cap, getting into the boat in navigating the seas, you risk being eaten by the barbarians or risk running out of food because you just don't have the tools. You're living in a different world. The world is changing so fast. We have to evolve with it.
Mm. Yeah, that's what you're talking to. I've heard it referred to as the dead internet theory.
Okay. Yeah.
That literally, like AI is creating its own posts and then like AI bots are responding to it, right? And so it's just like AI having a conversation with itself. Um, which yeah, is hilarious to me. And at the same time, I think this gets to what I was saying before. When there's a human element, when there's human touch, like you can tell when there's actually a human behind the response that you're getting. And when you talk about LinkedIn, it's been the same for me for quite a while, where just no authentic post or not post. There's no authentic DMs unless it's someone that I literally like actually know. That's
Yeah.
just like, oh, hey, I saw this thing here and wanted to send it to you. Right. And so if it's a person that I actually have met before, I'm like, oh yeah, I will read that message. But otherwise it's all people just trying to sell. Um,
It's completely flooded. In the side issue is, as you spread your message, as you're online more, as more people get to know you, we have to be more protective of our time, I
mhm,
think, because I could spend all day just responding to DMs. I could literally spend my entire day just responding to DMs, but that doesn't grow my business. It doesn't grow my relationship with the people that matter. So I think that AIs could present some really unique ways to filter out the stuff that's not good for either. But the people that get through will be the people that we make real relationships with.
mm. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think what I'm feeling, what I'm feeling with that is like there's the so this is I wouldn't say something I'm struggling with, but something that I'm like examining and looking at right now is the visibility factor and what types of visibility are actually helpful, meaningful, drive my businesses forward, right? What is that? What is the most beneficial type of visibility? And for my purposes, I think the things that I have been landing on, one, the podcast is phenomenal, right? It is really a good tool. And again, it's fun and I get to talk. And there are other new ways to iterate through that. I have some different ideas that I'll be implementing even in the next couple of months, right? To make it even more me. And being actually like physically on stage in a room full of people. That is the other piece. And having conversations with groups of people. So it's um the way that I'm kind of like internalizing this now is the sense of me actually meeting people. And like you said before, there it doesn't mean they're ready to buy at that moment. Sure, there might be
Mm.
some people who have like, oh yeah, I actually like my financial advisor just died and I need someone new. Right? That happens sometimes. But really, especially in an industry like mine where it does take a good bit of trust, right? The know and like are great. The trust is actually really, really important before someone will talk to me about their money
Right.
and like trust me with their life savings and all of that. Like it's a very vulnerable, tender piece of their life. So being able to be on stage, be in person with people, and then they get to know me. Then they go listen to the podcast. Then they go find me on LinkedIn and see again the clips from the podcast, right? That are being posted. That all of that social proof is supporting them already having had an experience of me in some way. And so there like that aspect of what are the ways that you are currently creating visibility for yourself and for your business, whether it's your personal brand or your, you know, specific business or whatever it is that you do, what aspects of visibility are actually driving your business forward? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's all been this format of remote video calls being broken into tons of different pieces of content. But we do need to start at the top. I think is to like why have a podcast in the first place, and to me it generally comes down to a few different reasons, one of which is I want to build my brand, right? I want to build know like and trust. I want to build up my brand because if we don't exist online, we don't exist for most businesses now.
Mhm.
So I want to build my personal brand. I want to grow my professional network. I want to have people I can reach out to when I have an issue. I want to build that up. Or I want to drive sales to my business. Um, and for B2B, I think podcasting is an incredibly powerful tool because we talked about this a moment ago. Most of the people that reach out on LinkedIn are just like wall of text plus link to buy, right? But when you have a podcast and you can easily identify your ideal client and you can easily identify the gatekeeper to your ideal client, well, now all we need to do is it's just a numbers game. We just need to go out and reach out to our ideal client and their gatekeepers and invite them onto our show. We invite them onto our show. We build rapport. We build know, like, and trust. We've given them platform. We've shared their message. People do business with people they like. If you invite them on, you're leading with value. They're coming on. They like you. Well, that's when we put them into funnels and automations to deliver more value, and then more value, and then more value. And then we say, hey, by the way, if I can ever be of service to you, I'm here. Okay. And then I'm showing up in their feed. If they're not ready to buy there, I'm showing up in their feed day in, day out, very consistently. So when they are ready or when they're ready to refer someone, you're that person. So I think that's probably one of the most underrated ways to use podcasts. There's different formats. I was even on a podcast for someone the other day. It was a 60-second podcast,
It's
which is
impressive.
that which I went through his entire funnel because it's actually not a podcast at that point. My opinion, it's just it's just a way of getting your leads on the call. But I frankly I didn't like his funnel too much. But
Mm.
that's why I like to go through this. I like to see, well, what works, what's working now, how can we make it more efficient, how can we automate more of it, what's getting the result for clients. Like there's so many different cool things we can do. But um, if you sell an expensive B2B service or even an expensive B2C service, identifying the gatekeeper, creating a show and a platform that will appeal to them is an incredibly powerful way of driving sales to your business. And it's, I don't know what to say. I've built my own empire off of this concept. So
Yeah.
yeah.
The thing that was popping up as you were talking about that, was and we've said this a couple of times, but talking about consistency, right? Like
Yes.
consistency being so, so important. And, um, I mainly work with business owners and entrepreneurs, and being able to show up consistently on social media or, in your marketing, whatever that is, that can sometimes really lead to burnout. And then there are some people who like it's just not in their nature to be able to, show up and take a video every single day or, like in that way. And so what else is coming up here is that like with podcasting in particular, and in this method of like take your podcast and then chop it up, I have noticed this too, for my own business is that the consistency can be there without me having to be the driver of that every single freaking day.
Right.
Right? So people are seeing me consistently. My message is getting out there consistently, and I hear that. And people, I see you all the time. I see you in my feed every day, and I don't have to show up and make a reel every single day. I don't have to do that. I did that for a long time actually.
Same.
Um, and it was a good practice, right? And it's like great to build some muscle around it. But as soon as I realized that like, oh, I don't have this is my key too, is that when I feel like I don't have anything to say, like I don't even have anything to say. I'm like, whoa, that's not true. But
Yeah.
I'm like burned out from it. That's my clue to be like, hey, you need to do this a little differently. And this method of like having something longer form and then chopping it up and putting it out there, having again, I use some different planning software, basically, like, posting posting things out for a week at a time, people still get that consistency. I am being consistent. I don't even have to pretend. Like I'm still being consistent here. It's just that I don't have to be the one carrying that energy all the time.
I love that. It's amazing. It's amazing. It doesn't serve you, your clients, your customers, your team to do work that you don't have to do. I know it can be very easy to get caught up in the hamster wheel, but
Mhm.
it it doesn't serve you. Put a plan in place, put the systems in place, put the people in place, and the rest just it makes it so that's the only way I could have gotten to 600 plus episodes is by having the systems in place. 1,000 YouTube videos. Oh, we posted maybe 2,000 YouTube videos across multiple channels now. I just wouldn't have been able to do it without the teams and the systems in place.
Yeah. So, okay, in our last few minutes here, I want to hear more about like what are some of the podcasts that you have? You mentioned your first one, that's still out there in the ether, but like what are you up to now? Like what's going on? How can people get a hold of you if they've heard this whole conversation or like that's exactly the support that I need? Yeah, tell us more.
You find Mark Savant Media all over the web. My podcast is that I'm really focused on is the After Hours Entrepreneur, and we just hit I think 450 episodes of the show. I've interviewed just like I mentioned killers like Neil Patel, and I've had Patrick Bet David on. Jasmine Starr's been on the show. I just had Dana Melstaff on the show. I think that's going will be live by the time this goes live. I don't know. We'll see. She's the boss mom. So, just Marissa Romero, just, like so many brilliant minds. Um, that's been great. But one of the things that I found, Hannah, when it comes to my podcast is, I think it's good to try different things, try different mediums, try different formats. So, um, my show has evolved a lot over the past 450 episodes, and I don't just do interviews now. One of the things I found that my audience really loves is short, like 10-minute lessons, like quick story about something that happened to me, a lesson I learned, and then how others can apply it. And those have become very popular. One in particular that I do is every month I do an income report where I just review the month. I go through my finances for the month, income, expenses, net profit, payroll, all the different line items, all the, the gross. Um, and people like really respond to that authenticity, which I think again is one of the biggest assets that we can have these days is the personal brand, the authenticity. Can people trust you? Because the reputation now is everything. We just live in a world where your reputation lives online. So anyway, After Hours Entrepreneur is where I just share my best lessons and how I'm using AI and how I'm generating more income. And it's going to be really fun in a few years to look back and say, okay, so this is where I was there. And now I've got a 7-figure business and this is how I'm going to get to 8 figures. It's just kind of, it's a really cool, I think both journal and transparent lesson for listeners.
Oh my gosh, you are hitting on something that is so needed and so, yeah, refreshing, I think. Like, I can absolutely see why people are responding to that so positively because we see so many people that, say, here's how you make the 7-figure business, and they forget to tell you that it cost them, $999,000 to create that 7 figures,
Right.
rather than being truthful about like, hey, yeah, this is what it's like to build a business. Here's like the actual expenses, here's the actual revenue. That is like refreshing is like the most like pinpointed word I can use for that. For someone to be like real about it and to share what it's really, yeah, really like. So I need to go listen apparently. And hear about that. I think that's amazing. And inspirational. I think that's inspirational for other business leaders. If you want to be a thought leader, if you want to be an actual leader, if you want to help shift the narrative in any way, shape, or form, we have to go first.
Totally agree. Lead by example. Yeah, it's been really good. And those episodes are not long either. I try to keep them to 10 minutes and sometimes I try to go under. That's another quick thing I found about podcast is, you know, when I would share podcasts with people, when they would open it up, they say, "Oh, this is like an hour long episode." They'd be kind of like, it's hard, I think, for people to invest an hour into a show." But when I would share someone say, "Hey, my income report is out there. You can see exactly how much money I'm making and what I'm doing," and it's 10 minutes, like 10 minutes, 5 minutes. These are numbers that new listeners can buy into. And as
Mm,
they start to listen to the 5 minutes and the 10 minutes, then all of a sudden the 30-minute episodes become more appealing. So I really like that kind of medium of trying different things and seeing what your audience responds to. Because people, again, I've been in this space for, over half a decade, tens of thousands of pieces of content, and people ask, they're always, people are always looking for like the secret sauce to growing a show. And just like within science, like we can have a hypothesis, but we're not going to know until we start testing and assessing, what are our download rates, what are our listen rates, which clips do well, what type of titles and hooks did well, how many people signed up for the newsletter, how many people clicked the newsletter,
mhm.
so looking at all the, having a hypothesis, having an idea, trying different things, testing different things, A/B testing, seeing what converts. That is a really important facet, I think, to having a successful digital marketing presence. We, like Mike Tyson said, everyone has an idea, plan until they get punched in the face. And, you know, I don't know if that quote completely applies here, but I like that quote.
You gotta had to shoehorn it in there. No, I love that. I love right, yeah, like, I think it fits in the way that, like, you have your plan until you actually execute it and see what's actually
Right.
coming from it, right? And then you have to be able to adjust, pivot, recalibrate, all of those things. So, well, Mark, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was wonderful to have you. All of the ways to connect with you will be in the show notes in case anyone wants to find. But like you said, Mark Savant Media everywhere. Just look for it, right? Google, super easy. And find you wherever you're at. So thank you again for being on the podcast. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Hannah.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening and be sure to like and subscribe. And again, if anything resonated with you from this episode, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Hannah, HANNAH, at expansiveceo.com and tell me about it. And if you're ready for your greatest expansion, you can find ways to work with me at expansiveceo.com. and at x2wealthplanning.com. That's X, the numeral 2, wealthplanning.com. So until next time, remember that there is enough, you are enough, and your birthright in this lifetime is to be expansive.